Hello, I'm Tim Hudson. I'm an actor and a London and Heart of England Blue Badge guide. And I'd like to introduce you to London's historic theatre district, which rivals Broadway in delivering the highest quality commercial theatre in the English-speaking world. And today Shakespeare's statue presides over Leicester Square, right at the heart of Theatreland. The Theatreland district consists of 39 theatres. It's an area defined by Oxford Street to the north, Kingsway to the east, Regent Street to the west, and Strand to south. There are a few theatres outside the geographical area still considered West End, for example, the Royal Court, the Victoria Palace, and the Old Vic theatres. Theatre building became a boom industry until after the First World War, and playwrights Oscar Wilde, George Bernard Shaw, and Noel Coward were among those who flourished, together with actors John Gielgud, Ralph Richardson, Laurence Olivier, Vivian Leigh, and many others. And in 2018, 15.5 million people went to the theatre. £765 million was taken at the box office, and 27,000 people were directly employed in the industry. Musicals, classic and modern straight plays, comedies and pantomimes were the bill of fare. Now here you can see TKTS, originally the half-price ticket booth in Leicester Square, which is run by the Society of London Theatre. Originally this was the half-price ticket booth where last-minute and discount theatre tickets were offered. It was open 7 days a week, and then COVID-19 struck and all theatres were closed from the 16th of March 2020. A few planned to reopen with social distancing, but major musicals like Les Miserables, Hamilton and Mary Poppins will not reopen until at least the spring of 2021. Theatre will return. It is a vital cultural asset. And on this virtual saunter through Theatreland, we're going to be reminded of the glorious productions, the superb architecture, and amazing talented practitioners, performers, designers, craftsmen and women, musicians and technicians who work in it and lend Theatreland its unique character. Now let's start with the Prince of Wales Theatre, established in 1884, which was designed by C.J. Phipps and renamed for the future King Edward VII. It was rebuilt in 1937 and became famous for its variety and reviews, and enjoyed its heyday in the 1950s when stars like Bob Hope, Peter Sellers and Morecambe and Wise appeared. But perhaps it was the Beatles on the 4th of November 1963 who created the greatest stir at the Royal Variety performance in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret. Andrew Lloyd Webber's Aspects of Love smashed all records when it opened in 1989 until it was superseded by Mamma Mia, which ran from 2004 to 2012. But immediately prior to lockdown, it was the Book of Mormon, the anarchic comedy, which had opened in 2013. And then just on the doorstep is Chinatown. It's the year of the rat, 2020. Next year, the year of the ox begins on the 12th of February and is inaugurated by a great dragon parade with between 300,000 and 500,000 people attending. Now, if you look on the picture, you can see just on the clock above all those red lanterns, the costumier and perruquier sign, indicating the wig maker Willie Clarkson worked here from 1861 to 1934. Now, a very handsome theatre, the Theatre Royal Haymarket, founded in 1720, which makes it the third oldest London playhouse still in use, although the present building dates from 1821, designed by John Nash, the architect of Buckingham Palace. It was refurbished in 1994 for £1.3 million. There's nothing like a Dame, says the song, and two are even better. Dame Judi Dench and Dame Maggie Smith appeared together for the first time in 40 years in 2002 in David Hare's The Breath of Life. A Woman of No Importance in 1893 was followed by An Ideal Husband 1895, two of the glittering social comedies of Irish wit and playwright Oscar Wilde, first performed here at the Haymarket. And the Conversation with Oscar Wilde is the name of this evocative sculpture by Maggie Hamling, made in 1998, which has the inscription, "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." And that's a quotation from Lady Windermere's Fan, which was produced here in 2002, directed by Peter Hall and starring Vanessa Redgrave. And finally, the magnificent Edwardian Baroque Her Majesty's Theatre, which changes its name according to the sex of the monarch, originally opened in 1897 and most recently the home of the Phantom of the Opera, which had its world premiere on the 19th of October 1986. Follow me up the avenue, Shaftesbury Avenue, the Broadway of London, to the Lyric Theatre, where the musical Thriller was playing immediately prior to lockdown. The Lyric is the oldest theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue. It opened in 1888 and was designed by the architect C.J. Phipps. And over the years, it's hosted some major stars: Jessica Lange, Woody Harrelson, John Malkovich, and Sir Alec Guinness, to name a few. There are plans to reopen the theatre with a socially distanced 11-week run of the rock opera Six, based on the 6 Wives of King Henry VIII, which, if it goes ahead, will open in November 2020. Next door is the Apollo Theatre, where the musical Jamie was playing most recently. Opened in 1901 and named after the Greek god of the arts. In 1968, 2 titans of the English stage, Sir John Gielgud and Sir Ralph Richardson, appeared together on stage in David Storey's home. They talk about a production which brings the house down, but that came true on the 19th of December 2013, 40 minutes into a performance of A Curious Incident of a Dog in the Nighttime, when 110 square feet of ornate plasterwork on the ceiling suddenly collapsed on the audience, bringing with it a lighting rig and a section of balcony. Everyone's talking about Jamie, however, the musical which opened in 2017, based on a true story, Firecracker, about a 16-year-old teenager overcoming bullying and prejudice to become a drag queen. And then there is the Gielgud Theatre, which opened in 1906, designed by W.G.R. Sprague. David Mitchell was starring as William Shakespeare here in Upstart Crow, at what was originally called the Globe Theatre, but in 1994 was renamed to avoid confusion with Shakespeare's Globe across the river and to honour Sir John Gielgud. In 1939, John Gielgud had acted in and directed what was then regarded as the classic production of Oscar Wilde's Importance of Being Earnest. But in 1987, Maggie Smith gave a definitive performance as the flamboyant tour guide in Lettuce and Lovage, whilst in 2007, Equus with Daniel Radcliffe created a sensation when the star of Harry Potter had to appear nude. In 1995, the famous theatre cat Beerbohm, a tabby, passed away aged 20, prompting a front-page obituary in the theatre newspaper The Stage. Beerbohm managed to appear on stage in every production at least once, and he would target the dressing rooms of specific actors whom he favoured. Peter Bowles, Michael Gambon and Penelope Keith were amongst his victims. On the 6th of May 2013, Dame Helen Mirren, who was then appearing in Peter Morgan's The Audience as Her Majesty the Queen, dressed in her finery, stormed out of the theatre in the intervals to berate in rather unregal language some drummers who were making rather too much noise in the street. And now the Sondheim Theatre, formerly the Queen's Theatre, which was designed by W.G.R. Sprague in 1907, but which in September 1940 was the subject of a direct hit from a German bomb during the Blitz, which destroyed the facade and lobby during the run of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. The exterior was rebuilt in the modern style, but the auditorium's Edwardian decor was preserved. The theatre reopened in 1959 with John Gielgud's anthology of Shakespeare's speeches and sonnets, Ages of Man. From 2004 to 2019, the theatre hosted Les Miserables, which had opened at the Barbican Theatre in 1985. It became the longest running musical of all time, overtaking Cats on the 8th of October 2006. And then the Palace Theatre, which was commissioned by Richard Doyley Cart, designed by Thomas Edward Colcott, which opened in 1891. Originally, this was an opera house where Sir Arthur Sullivan's Ivanhoe was presented. Then it became a music hall. It seats 1,400 on 4 levels. Important productions here include The Sound of Music in 1961, and then from 1972 to 1980, Jesus Christ Superstar. The then owner in 1983, Andrew Lloyd Webber, removed the huge neon sign on the exterior to reveal the splendid terracotta facade, and he uncovered the marble and onyx panels in the auditorium too. And since June of 2016, it's been the home to the smash hit Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. The Keep the Secrets campaign was promoted by J.K. Rowling herself in order to ensure the integrity of the special effects, and the show won 9 Olivier Awards, including Best New Play. Now, the Duke of York's Theatre is one of the most picturesque. It opened in September of 1892, but perhaps it's best known because of the premiere of Peter Pan or the Boy Who Would Not Grow Up, which debuted on the 27th of December 1904, several years before the novel published in 1911. In the 1940s, there was a production of The Queen Came By, in which one of the costumes, a bolero-style jacket, tried to strangle any actress who wore it. No matter how often it was let out, it grew tighter and tighter around them. A séance was held in which a medium saw a clear image of a man attempting to drown a struggling young woman. Eventually, she collapsed, lifeless, and the man removed her clothing, including the jacket. And with all these ghosts, it's only fitting that in 2020, the show, which was on prior to lockdown, was Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit, in which Jennifer Saunders played the clairvoyant Madame Arcati. On the Strand is the Adelphi Theatre. The present building is the 4th on the site. It was founded in 1806 as the Sans Pareil, then renamed the Adelphi after the buildings opposite. The new Adelphi opened in 1858. The longest running show here from 1997 to 2006 was Chicago. Now, at the rear of the theatre in Maiden Lane is the stage door, which was the scene of a very violent event on the 16th of December 1897, during a run of Secret Service, when William Terrace, the actor-manager, was stabbed to death by a jealous rival, Richard Prince, whom he had had dismissed from the play because Prince had abused alcohol and become unstable. Prince leapt out and stabbed William Terrace with a butcher's knife in the back, side and chest. "I'll be back," said William Terrace as he lay dying, cradled in the arms of his leading lady, Jessica Millward. The Lyceum Theatre has had a varied history. It was founded in 1765 under Samuel Arnold and has been a circus and home to the first London exhibition of Madame Tussauds waxworks. The present building dates from 1834, designed by Samuel Beazley. From 1871 until 1902, the Lyceum was home to the great Shakespearean performances created by Henry Irving and Ellen Terry, amongst them The Merchant of Venice, a huge success for Irving in 1879. Now, at that time, the personal assistant to Henry Irving and the business manager of the Lyceum was one Bram Stoker, best known for his novel, published in 1897, Dracula, said to have been modelled on Irving. And no doubt Bram Stoker hoped he would cast Irving in the stage production because of his dramatic sweeping gestures, gentlemanly mannerisms, and speciality in playing villainous roles. Irving was knighted in 1895, the first actor to be accorded the honour, and he proudly stands on that pedestal outside the National Portrait Gallery. When he died in 1905, his cremated ashes were buried in Westminster Abbey. The theatre was restored in 1996, and since 1999, it's been the home of the Disney musical, The Lion King, with music composed by Elton John, lyrics by Tim Rice, designed and directed by Julie Taymor. But the oldest working theatre in the West End is the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. The first theatre opened in 1663 when Thomas Killigrew was granted royal patent by Charles II. And it was here that one of the earliest actresses, Nell Gwynn, the King's mistress, performed. The first theatre was destroyed by fire in 1672, but was rebuilt in 1674, and one of its most famous actors was David Garrick. He was followed by Richard Brinsley Sheridan in 1776, Member of Parliament, wit, orator, and playwright who notoriously failed to finish his work on time. So at one point, Sheridan had to be locked up by his actors before he would complete one of his greatest hits, The Rivals. The theatre burned down in 1809 while Sheridan was speaking in the House of Commons. He returned to the theatre to watch it go up in flames and displayed admirable sang-froid, sipping wine from a tavern across the street. When questioned, he replied, "A man may surely be allowed to take a glass of wine at his own fireside." The present theatre dates from 1812, rebuilt by Benjamin Dean Wyatt. The portico was added in 1820 and a colonnade in 1831. Uniquely, there are two royal entrances on Russell Street, leading to two royal boxes for King George III, who detested his son, the Prince of Wales. One production was particularly spectacular. In 1909, The Whip featured a train crash and a recreation of the 2,000 Guinness Stakes, with 12 real-life racehorses going hell for leather on a treadmill. In more recent times, Drury Lane has been famous for epic musical, and when the theatre emerges from its £60 million refurbishment, it will reopen with Frozen. Now, there's a celebrated ghost at Drury Lane, the Man in Grey, who appears in 18th century garb and a powdered wig beneath a tricorn hat. He's seen at the end of the fourth row in the upper circle, from which he proceeds along the rear gangway, vanishing through the wall near the royal box. And in the 1850s, a skeleton of a man with a dagger in his ribs was found. The appearance of the Man in Grey is always looked forward to because he heralds a successful show. It's been known physically to move actors into a better light on stage. Now let's talk a little about the resources available for actors in Theatreland, beginning with the Actors Centre. Established in 1978, it's the UK's leading professional development organisation. Spotlight is the casting service for actors and originally published several weighty tomes, directories for actors and actresses every year. Now these directories are entirely online. Meanwhile, the Actors Union Equity was formed in 1930. It also represents singers, models, performers, directors, choreographers, designers, and stage managers, with a membership of some 47,000. The annual subscription is 1% of an actor's gross earnings. Of course, Theatreland is famous for great places to eat and drink, and these include an historic pub, the Lamb and Flag, but its nickname, the Bucket of Blood, testifies to its career as a venue for bare-knuckle prize fighting. The pub dates from 1772. And then there's Rule's, the restaurant founded by Thomas Rule in 1798, which is the oldest restaurant in London. Its clientele has included writers like Charles Dickens, H.G. Wells, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, as well as, more discreetly, Edward VII and his mistress, Lily Langtry. Probably the best-known restaurant is the Ivy, whose name comes from the popular song by A.J. Mills and Harry Castling, "Just like the ivy, I'll cling to you." The regular two-seater tables at the Ivy along the walls were frequented by stars like Laurence Olivier, Vivien Leigh, John Gielgud, and Noel Coward. And finally, Joe Allen's opened in 1977, the West End's Canteen. It began, of course, an American restaurant on Broadway in New York. The Actors' Church, St. Paul's Covent Garden, was designed by Inigo Jones and built from 1631 to 3 for Francis Russell, the 4th Earl of Bedford. "I would not have it much better than a barn," said the Earl. "Well then," replied Jones, "you shall have the handsomest barn in England." The painter Turner was baptized here, as was W.S. Gilbert of Gilbert and Sullivan fame. Ellen Terry's ashes, she died in 1928, were placed in a silver casket which was interred in the South Wall. There are lots of commemorations in the church for stars like Ivor Novello, Vivian Leigh, and Charles Macklin, who was an Irish actor and playwright who lived to the enormous age of 107, dying in 1797. A swimmer and a boxer, as well as an actor, in 1735 he was embroiled in a terrible scandal when a cane he was using on stage was thrust through the eye of another actor, Hallam, in a squabble over a wig. Charles Macklin conducted his own defence and was acquitted. He married his mistress to celebrate. There's a memorial for Charles Macklin in the church which has a dagger piercing the eye of a theatrical mask. In the gardens of St. Paul's Church, plays are frequently performed in summer, and you'll find benches which are inscribed with dedications to great actors, and in this case to a famous playwright, Peter Barnes, the author of The Ruling Class, which was a great success for Peter O'Toole. Look at the inscription. "How do you know your God?" says the central character. "Simple. When I pray, I find I'm talking to myself." And on the left, you can see the Tuscan portico of St. Paul's Church, but this was the setting for the fateful meeting in Pygmalion of Professor Henry Higgins and Eliza Doolittle, which later, of course, became the hugely successful musical My Fair Lady. And Covent Garden Piazza is a vibrant place of entertainment. Ever since, on the 9th of May 1662, the famous diarist Samuel Pepys witnessed the first ever Italian puppet show, or Punch and Judy show, which he described as very pretty, the best I ever saw. But Covent Garden takes its name from Convent Garden, after the monks of Westminster, who cultivated the land and grew fruit and vegetables here. Subsequently, the Earl of Bedford built his great mansion in Covent Garden, but when it was demolished, market stalls and temporary coffee houses sprung up, bringing the area into disrepute. And so it was that the Earl of Bedford commissioned Charles Fowler in 1830 to construct the present elegant market buildings, consisting of iron and glass roofs added by Cubitt in the 1870s, and Doric columns and a code stone sculpture at the East End. There was a plan to redevelop the area after the fruit and vegetable market transferred to Nine Elms, south of the river, in 1974, but fortunately this was defeated by lobbying. The central market was reopened to reveal the graceful architecture and now hosts an eclectic mix of shops, restaurants and market stalls. And in the market buildings, the highest quality of buskers can be seen performing, and sometimes these include musicians and soloists from the Royal Opera House. And finally, we come to the memorial to the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie, which was made by Ben Twiston Davis, unveiled in 2012. Agatha Christie, who lived from 1890 to 1976, published 66 detective novels and 14 short story collections. Amongst her immortal creations were Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective, and the spinsterly Miss Marple. 2 billion copies of the books have been sold, and she's been translated into 44 languages. She's become the best-selling fiction writer of all time. But she was also a playwright who at one time had 3 plays running simultaneously in the West End, and one of those has gone on to become the longest running of any play in history, The Mousetrap, currently at St. Martin's Theatre. It opened on the 25th of November 1952, adapted from a radio play, 3 Blind Mice, and was originally presented over the road at the Ambassadors Theatre. Audiences at curtain call are asked not to reveal the identity of the killer to anyone outside to preserve the secret. In the original cast were Richard Attenborough and Sheila Sid, and the clock on the mantelpiece in the main hall survives from that first production. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this virtual stroll through Theatreland. One day, I trust you'll come back to enjoy the area and see a show for yourself. And then you'll experience what Simon Callow so ably describes. To enter a theatre for a performance, he said, is to be inducted into a magical space, to be ushered into the sacred arena of the imagination.